Now, when you think of banks, their political stances are not exactly the first thing that comes to mind.
So what has your politics got to do with who you bank your money with? The whole row follows Nigel Farage's claims that major lenders have been refusing him accounts.
I think 9 so far. So are banks becoming too political, we're asking this morning, or should they stick to what they know? Well, the journalist Sam Dowler thinks even discussing this is wildly irresponsible.
And there's Fraser Myers, Spiked deputy editor. He says this is a financial war on dissent. Gentlemen, good morning to both of you. Sam, so is this a thing?
First of all, my wildly irresponsible statement was with regards to something not specifically about the banks being political, but obviously in this scenario, our main player is Nigel Farage, and we... Look, I mean, this is obviously alleged. We don't know. I mean, I don't know whether he's walked into a NatWest and sat down with somebody and said, can I open a personal account and a business account? And they've gone, no, not for the likes of you. So we don't know what it's about, and we don't know what banks he's gone to. I mean, I'm assuming he was quite an exclusive bank like Coots or something beforehand. And again, they haven't given their reasonings. And I don't think banks should be political at all. I mean, just because you disagree politically on anything doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to have a bank account like everybody else. But I mean, things like, for example, it's just been Pride Month and LGBTQ rights have been, you've seen the rainbow flag on many banks and across many corporations. And, and some would say that was a political in itself, which of course it isn't. But I don't think you should, your political views should have any bearing on what banks you bank with. But again, we don't know what's happened with Nigel. We don't know what's going on with his, particular dealings. So I think, until we know all the facts, we can't necessarily say that they're saying that they don't want to work with him because
so that
of his views on
specific
Brexit.
case, I accept the argument. We don't know the ins and outs, but let's assume that there are these instances happening. Then, that is wrong, surely, Fraser. Then you've got criminals, people who've committed murder, who can still have bank accounts, and then somebody who's a legitimate politician. I've gone specific again, but somebody with political views that people disagree with, being refused access to their own funds.
Yeah, I think this has opened up a very frightening new front in the culture wars, because it's bad enough that people are being deplatformed if they disagree with establishment views. They're denied the ability to speak on a university campus or something like that. Now we're seeing that potentially people are being debanked, defunded, and sort of financially unpersoned. I know in the case of Nigel Farage, we don't know exactly what's going on. It might be the case that he's considered a politically exposed person under the kind of banking regulations. If that is the case, it seems as if those regulations have gone way, way too far. Regulations that are designed to out corruption or, essentially take a closer look at politicians because they might be more exposed to corruption is being used wholly wrongly there. Or perhaps it is, political. I mean, it's not a secret, as Nigel Farage says, that the banks are pro-Remain. It's not a secret, as the previous guest alluded to, that they're always covered in pride flags. So if you have a disagreement with, some of the trans policy, for instance, then you're kind of put on the wrong side of your bank, which is quite alarming. I mean, there was a man in Yorkshire who was kicked out of his building society for raising questions about its bank's messaging around pride. We've seen how Halifax, when it put out a video saying why trans pronouns are important, some people objected to that, and it said, well, we don't want your custom, you should close your accounts. So clearly banks are taking a political line, and that's potentially dangerous for people who are on the other side of that, who are held to have so-called problematic views. Surely everyone in society has a right to a bank. You can't function really without a current account. You need access to a high street bank as well if you want to run a business. And it's not even as if you can go necessarily to some of these new tech startups or to other alternative new forms of money management, because PayPal has a similarly political policy. It temporarily banned the Free Speech Union. It temporarily banned certain anti-lockdown groups. GoFundMe has taken similar attitudes to political causes it disagrees with. So, yeah, this is a very frightening situation where your political views can essentially determine whether you have access to money or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't just stop at money, or it mightn't just stop at money, Sam. But I was asking you, is it a thing or not? It might get to a stage where people don't service your car because they don't like your political views or they don't like your social views on certain things. But just generally, as a rule, should business be business and views be views? Should the two ever mix? Or what do you think about having, companies having authority over our views and our lives?
Look, I mean, there's a case that's just gone to the Supreme Court in America at the moment where they've overturned a ruling from decades ago whereby a cake shop can deny, or a website designer can deny working with LGBTQ people because they think that it goes against their religion. But that's America, and that's not the same as the UK. We don't put much stock on religion that much in this country. When I think that's a really good thing. But when it comes to going down and using your bank or using your supermarket, I don't think your political views should come into it. Obviously, if you go down there wearing some sort of far right fascist T-shirt, whatever, and they ask you to leave, that's different. But I also think it's a bit of a stretch that that simply because Brexit happened, that banks are going to turn down Nigel Farage. I mean, that Brexit happened like a long time ago now, and obviously here on GB News he does have a standing, and therefore he is visible. But I don't think I think this is more to do with things that we don't understand. But I mean, back to your question, Eamon, I think that a political, where you stand politically, and again I have to say that I don't think LGBTQ rights are a political thing at all. I think it's just part of human rights. But I think you should still be able to use the services that you would do normally without fear that someone's going to chuck you out because they've seen you on TV and they don't like what you said.
Well, I believe the BBC has a department. I was speaking to an actor this week who I hope to have on the programme, but was dropped from a drama series and a sort of entertainment programme, because after you're booked, there is a department in the BBC that then looks into your life and says, oh no, we don't like their view on this, or we don't like that. They're not somebody we would like on the BBC. So they find out things from your life, and then you're cancelled. I'm actually frightened.
That's like with actors or reality stars. I mean, I have friends that work in public relations, and they have people whose specific job it is to go into that person's Twitter, like way back, and until before they even began, to look for any kind of racial slurs or anti-LGBTQ statements, because simply they don't want to have someone on their show who has said stuff in the past, even if it's like 10 years ago when they were a teenager.
So you'd be in favour of that?
No, I mean, I do think obviously that people's opinions change, but I mean, we live in a world now where if you put something online, especially on Twitter or on any kind of social media, it is there forever. So, I mean, and it will go round forever. So, you just need to, temper what you say. I mean, I think, but it's up to, nobody has a right to get a job at the BBC or anywhere really. Like if they've said something that the company doesn't like, then they have every right to get rid of them.
Fraser, last word to you.
Yeah, I think we can be a bit naive about how quickly politics can change and how quickly the sort of correct view can change. So, if we're talking about, say, the trans issue, a lot of people 10 years ago who might be allies today probably will have made silly jokes about that and could get themselves cancelled. I mean, how quickly the gay rights question has changed in our lifetime, and could things change again? So I'd be worried about people saying that corporations or whatever the correct view is now, as long as we adhere to that, you're not going to be cancelled. I don't think that's quite true. I think anything could happen in the future. Any view could become demonised, just as any any other view could be celebrated. And that's why it's important to always back free speech in all circumstances.
OK, you two are now cancelled, but very entertaining listening to you. Sam Dowler, Fraser Myers, thank you both very much indeed for your differing views there. Thank you.